Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mittabad Paramahansa Buddhacharya Astatur the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhacharya Astatur the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So we will be studying page 351 today. 351. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of December 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 8, entitled Attaining the Supreme, text number 7, page 351. Okay. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmana yudhyacha mayarpatamano buddhir Mame Vaishyasya Sangshayaha Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanus Madayudhyacha Mayarpatamano Buddhir Mame Vaishyasya Sangshayaha. You have the one book that has a different page numbers. Oh, it's not on page 351 for you, Parashakti? 351? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmarayudhyacha mayarpitamano buddhir Mame Vaishyasya Sangshayaha. Parashakti. Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmara yudhyacha mayarpitamano buddhir mame vaishyasya sangshayaha tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha mayarpitamano buddhir mame vaishyasya sangshayaha. Go ahead, Darshan. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha mayarpitamano buddhir asangshaya mame vaishyasya sangshayaha. All right, I'll just read through the word-by-word meanings. Tasmat, therefore, sarveshu, at all, kaleshu, times, mam, me, anusmara, go on remembering, yudhya, fight, cha, also, mai, unto me, arpita, surrendering, manaha, mind, buddhihi, intellect, mam, unto me, eva, surely, eshasi, you will attain, asangshayaha, beyond a doubt. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Purport. This instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, without a doubt. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this verse begins with the word tasmat, therefore. And therefore, it means that it's the end of an argument or a little proof. So Krishna began this little lesson on text 5, in which he says, and whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Then he gives a general principle. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. And therefore, one should always think of Krishna, and you will go to Krishna at the end of this life. Now what's the advantage? What is the advantage? The advantage is, as Krishna has explained at the end of the previous chapter, no more birth and death, no more suffering, no more confusion, and no more risk of losing the human form of life and going down into the species or into the plant life or fish life, whatever, and then making your way gradually up. It is in this chapter that he describes this world as a place of suffering. Dukkha-alayam. An alaya is an abode, and dukkha means misery. Now you say, well, that sounds pretty pessimistic. I mean, there's ups and downs, right? That's life. You know, there's some pleasures, there's some pains. That's the way it is. But that's just because we don't know about the other kind of existence. We are a combination of spirit and matter. We are every organism. We are by nature spiritual, and the nature of spirit is that it's never born, never dies, and conscious. The Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Person, we're eternally persons as well, is Krishna, and his nature of his form is Satchit Ananda. Now that's the nature of our actual form also, but we've lost that. Satchit Ananda means eternal, full of unlimited knowledge and full of bliss, all the time, eternally. Well, we can all testify that that's not the case now. There's so many things we don't know. We're certainly not eternal. We know we're going to die, and we were born at one time as bodies. And we're not always blissful. So we're asat, achit, and nirananda in this present form. So the Vedic teachings teach us that we've lost that actual life, that's our natural state. So how did we lose it? And how did we forget it? By disconnecting ourselves from Krishna, from turning our back, because we have a certain amount of free will. This is what it means to be a living being, especially one who's highly evolved with intelligence, which human beings are. We have a certain amount of free will. We have a certain amount of independence. But it's always limited. And if we misuse that, it gets reduced. Just like if you're you're living in the society, but if you commit some crime, you're free to do that, but then the police are free to come and arrest you and prosecute you, then you lose a lot of your independence, right? You still have a certain amount of independence. And in your cell bunk, you could sleep on your left side, on your right side, right? And there's still a certain amount, but you're much more constricted now. So this is what's happened. We had freedom in that spiritual realm. We were on a par with Krishna because we were we were performing our constitutional activity, which means to engage in loving service to the Lord and receiving His reciprocal love. This is what the spiritual world is all about. Idyllic in every way. But because we have that ability to be to say no, just like why do we have that independence? Because Krishna takes a risk in expanding in his all unlimited beings, because he wants to engage in loving relationship. That's really what where real happiness lies. Even in the material world, even there was a song a long time ago, right? Love makes the world go round. Forgive me, I'm dating myself. But that's really true. Can you imagine? Suppose you're the most wealthy person, you have $100 million, you have a big house in La Jolla, and everything. But you're all alone in your house. You're miserable, right? You'll throw a party, you go somewhere. In other words, there's interaction has to be there. So that's called rasa in the Sanskrit word. Rasa means that pleasure that comes from relating to others in a loving relationship of varieties. Friends, parents, your children, and so forth. So, in the idyllic world, the spiritual world, these relationships are there with Krishna, and they go on for eternity. Until, for us, we deny that relationship. We want to be the enjoyer and the controller and the master. In other words, we want to be God. Well, you can't be God because the position's already taken. And we are minute spiritual. We're called angsha. It's like a drop of water in the ocean. We have the qualities of the ocean, the same chemical composition and minute, but we're certainly not the ocean. So when we want to try to act like God and be controllers and owners and the master, we can't do that in the spiritual world, so we get to come to this world and try to enact that. But it's an incompatible situation. We're out of character. It's not who we are constitutionally. So we're given this artificial body, which is really just a big machine, and it's amazing construction, but it's fraught with so many limitations. And everyone knows you can get injured, and eventually you get old and you die, which is a big, trauma. But nobody dies. No soul dies. This is one of the first teachings, the first teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. The jayate mriyate va kadachan. Krishna says, for the soul there is never birth nor death at any time. No soul has come into being. They're not coming into being now. They won't come into being. We've existed eternally. We exist, and we will exist all eternal, just as eternal as Krishna is. Aja nitya shashvato yam purana. He pounds it, is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. The soul is not slain when the body is slain. Because they're on a battlefield, and he's trying to convince Arjuna to fight. So that language is used. So what happens then when you die? Well, that's described in the previous verses. In the previous verse, number 6, Krishna says, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So it all depends on the consciousness that we cultivate in this lifetime. The state of your mind is what determines your next embodiment. That's the law of karma, the law of transmigration. It's explained a little more in the 15th chapter near the beginning. Is that everything we do, our aspirations, the decisions we make, who we associate with, the music we hear, it's all going in, creating our consciousness. And what the predominant state of our consciousness, the main thought is at that time, that will determine our next body. Now we can't prove this by in some laboratory somewhere. But this knowledge is coming down from ancient times. And those who have self-realized, they confirm this. They can remember previous lives. The limitations of the human mind are way beyond what we can imagine. The yogis, they live for sometimes hundreds of years because they slow down the breathing, they slow down the whole process. Is it possible to do that? So this is the science of transmigration. Now, what does that mean for us as aspiring sadhakas trying to achieve self-realization? Well, it means that, as Krishna says here, therefore, at all times remember me and do your duty. Now, for Arjuna, he's a great warrior, so he says, you fight. But we can plug in our own duties here. All of us have things that we have to do, in order to maintain ourselves. We have to add Krishna. There's a very nice verse in another book called the Bhagavad Purana or Srimad Bhagavatam, where there's the creator of the universe, meaning the engineer, not God himself, but his first deputy for creation is named Brahma. And he once challenged Krishna. When Krishna was in Vrindavan, he took the role of a little child. Very attractive and wonderful child, but nevertheless a human-like child. And this great creator, you can imagine how powerful he was. He lives for millions and millions of years. He somehow didn't compute how this child, this little boy here, cavorting with his calves and his boyfriends, engaging in replicas of activity that's going on in the spiritual world. How is this God, my father? How is this, So he challenged. He stole his calves, stole his boys, and put them into mystic slumber, and said, "What's Krishna going to do now? He's going to be all alone." But he came back from a moment in his time, which was a year in our time. There's an elasticity of time, and there was Krishna playing with the same boys and the same calves. How does that work? So Brahma checked on the boys who were nicely sleeping in his slumber and mystic slumber, and he realized, oh my God, he's created a whole new set of calves and boys. Anyway, there's a whole lot to the story I won't go into. But after all of that, he realized, oh, this really is my Father, God, and he's now taken this form for his own pastimes. So he came down and he apologized, he prayed, and he bowed, and then he offered these prayers in the 10th canto, and they're very important because they have a lot of philosophy. And so one of them is pertinent to this verse, which says, "Remember me and do your work." In other words, don't do anything radical. In the previous chapter, in 6, we've been through 7. In chapter 6, he said, okay, if you want to practice meditative yoga, because he goes through different kinds of yoga. The yoga of action, karma yoga, of knowledge, of using your mind, and trying to figure out things. That's jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge. And then there's meditative yoga, dhyana. Dhyana means meditation. And he described them in different chapters. So in chapter 6 he describes, well, first you go alone. Go alone to the mountains or the forest somewhere where you can sit and you just look at the between the eyebrows and practice the breathing, all the classic things that we learn in the Hatha Yoga studio, little samples. Well, now he's not saying, no, don't do that. Don't go anywhere. You keep doing your duty, but think of me. With your mind and intelligence dedicated to me, you will certainly come to me. In other words, you come back to me to the spiritual world where you left eons ago, because you'll be purified by that thought. The dominant thought when you leave your body will be of me, not of anything in this material world. So this is the whole thing in a nutshell. Text 5, he says, Antakali tamam eva, whoever thinks of me at the end of life will come to me. And then the general principle, text 6, whatever you think of, the dominant thought, that will determine your next life. Now we may think, oh my God, I've thought of so many things in this life. Who knows, Well, from this point on, we should use our God-given intelligence to direct our thoughts in such a way that at the time of death we can think of Krishna. In other words, this is what Bhakti Yoga means. To fill your life with working for Krishna, thinking of Krishna, seeing how He's present everywhere, even in your job or your school or wherever you may be. What he's explained in chapter 7, whatever we see, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, these are 8 material energies that, if you think about it, everything is made of. Every living being, a cat, dog, even an insect, it has a certain amount of intelligence, and it has senses, right? And it has a rudimentary mind. And what is it made of? Solid matter and gases, and some liquids and energy. These 8 are present in every living organism. So we can see, if we remember these, Krishna's teachings, we can see how He's everywhere. And most importantly, we can see, he describes, I'm in everyone's heart as an expansion. And I'm giving you the intelligence by which you're doing what you're doing. So this is the divine vision of the God-realized soul. We saw that with Srila Prabhupada. Whatever he spoke of, whatever he did, he was, chanting the holy name, cooking, wonderful feasts. He showed us how, worshipping the beautiful deities. It was always, Krishna was in the center. And he was always peaceful and blissful and very compassionate. To come to America at age 69, failing health, no money, no friends, just to teach us Bhagavad Gita. He didn't come in order to, I got a book deal waiting for me when I come. It wasn't like that. He struggled these books. I was explaining, was it last night, I think? Because I've been involved with the production of these books for like 45 years, And I know what went into creating the book and producing the book, a lot of effort, a lot of, devotion. Whatever Prabhupada did, he didn't do it for material means. He did it to help us, because this is what we need as human beings. And this knowledge, it's going to be as pertinent 100 years from now as it is today. Just like we're reading in the morning from the Srimad Bhagavatam. We were reading from the Ishopanishad, which Srila Prabhupada wrote in the 50s. And it contains this ancient knowledge, Isha Vashamidam Sarvam. It's the same knowledge in a little different words. But what he's writing there, now it's over 50 years ago, is it comes right from the headlines. The government people who are, who become corrupted, they are just out in order to make money for themselves, and they, exploit the people. Because they're not God conscious, they don't know the first thing in the Ishopanishad, that everything belongs to God and should be used in His service. That will make you happy, and like that. It's always going to be pertinent. So this formula was correct 5,000 years ago. It's correct today, and it'll be correct 5 million years ago. If we can learn and be trained how to bring God into every one of our activities, then our life becomes very auspicious, very hopeful. And we have to stop thinking that, my life, it's just like 70 years long, 80 years long. No, this is just a very short chapter in a very long book. This one lifetime. Break out of that. We've had many uncountless lives before. We've lived everywhere, done all these things. And we'll live again. But now with intelligence, guided by this wonderful knowledge, we can be on the safe side and make this life our last. This life imprisonment in a physical body, which is fraught with so many difficulties. There's hope. There's tremendous hope. So that this verse, I always like these 3 verses. Sometimes when I give the Sunday talk, I just pick out these 3 verses. Because Prabhupada talks, they're short purports here, but notice in the previous 2, in 3 purports, he quotes the whole Hare Krishna mantra 3 times. What's the best way to remember Krishna? Easy, the mind is like a flickering, sometimes they compare it to a bee going here and there, uncontrollable. Sometimes to a wild horse you can't control. In the 6th chapter, Arjuna says, it's just, my mind is just like a powerful wind. How can you control the wind? So Krishna has come in this age just a few years ago. When we're talking about, millions and millions of years, then Lord Chaitanya, who's an incarnation of Krishna, he started this Hare Krishna movement, really. This chanting of Hare Krishna publicly. He's an incarnation of Krishna. And he's come to give us the easiest, most practical and fun means to remember him. Chant Hare Krishna mantra. It's right up there. It's called the Maha Mantra. And it's rooted in the Upanishads, in the Shastra. And what is that? How's it go? Hare Krishna, this is in the Upanishads. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Nam, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam, Natak Padataropaya, Sarvabheseshu Drishyate. So they give the Hare Krishna mantra. And then it says these 16 names, there are 16 names there, are completely destroy the evils of this Kali age. Now this is another thing we need to know about how the ages develop, just like, summer, fall, winter, spring. It's just like a cycle. So this is the winter age, if you will. This is the present age is not very conducive to calm thinking and meditation and spiritual life, in and of itself. Kali? No, that's Kali. That's Kali is a goddess. She's another name for Durga, or the material energy. But Kali is also a person. There's a personality of this age. Yeah. And the nature of this age, we see it all around us. What's really amazing to me is that it's supposed to go on for another 427,000 years. We're only 5,000 years in, and already it seems that, all right, we got about 12 years left, right? Isn't that what... it seems to get, but somehow, by the countervailing force of the Krishna consciousness movement, and we'll maybe slow things up. But the point is that in this age, it's much more difficult to practice meditative yoga and cultivate knowledge and all these things. So there's a shortcut. And that is this Hare Nama. The Hare Nama means the holy name of Hari, or Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya, he said, he built his movement on this one verse. He quoted his own spiritual master as saying this is the verse for you, and it's an easy verse to remember. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva gataranyata. I put it into a little poem, for easy remembrance. If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way. There is no other way that can ever be found, but to chant Krishna's name. But to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever unto your lotus feet bow. So this chanting of Hare Krishna is the best way to what? To always remember Krishna. Here he says, Anusmam anusmara yudyacha sarveshu kaleshu. The hard part is the always part, because it's we can remember for a while, but then material energy kind of takes us away. So it says sarveshu kaleshu. Therefore, at all times, remember me and fill in the blank. Do your duty with your intelligence and mind. Get it dedicated to me. You will surely come to me without a doubt. So this is the key. Every serious process of yoga involves the mind. Involves focusing the mind on the supreme in whatever form you're meditating. How to do that? That's the question. For that we need training. We need a method, and the process of bhakti yoga centered on hearing and chanting, especially hearing and chanting the holy name of Krishna, both in congregation musically. And this was another super genius thing that Lord Chaitanya did, because there's something called Taurya Trikena. Taurya means, we're very familiar with it, singing, dancing, and playing musical instruments. Right? Isn't that what's going on in the weekends? Clubs everywhere, right? Concerts, raves. Do they still have raves? Some of them. But now that can be a great force for illusion, for Maya. You know, in other words, it can completely make you forget anything about Krishna. You know, but it can also be a powerful way to remember Krishna. So we have two things. We have two main ways. One is the meditative way, just like a rosary. We chant. Have you ever seen the beads? You know about the beads. So we chant, meditatively every morning at 5:15 to 7:15. You'll see here devotees. You can look on the internet even. And we have our small crew. Harekrishna, Harekrishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Very important. Lord Chaitanya showed himself. He did it himself, and he recommended everyone should do. But the actual Yuga Dharma, the most prominent way is more the merrier. Get together, play instruments in time, and dance and chant, responsibly, like a kirtan. I chant, you hear, and then you chant, and I hear, like that. And it's very easy. A child can do it. We have this little child who comes. He hasn't yet get to the chanting part, but he really has the dancing part down. Yeah. This is one boy. Do you know his name? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, so Prabhupada said that these children are very fortunate. They're getting a taste for it. Even when everyone knows the first 5 years, what you really get into, that'll stay with you. So the idea is that there's a tremendous natural joy in practicing bhakti yoga, with the singing and the dancing and the feasting and the, plays and the artwork. And all of this can be dovetailed, can be engaged in Krishna service. And it's a very susukam. In the next chapter, Krishna will say, this is the chapter we chanted last night. I don't know if you were here. We had a ceremony celebrating the anniversary of Krishna speaking this Bhagavad Gita, which actually literally was the Saturday, was the day before, was the Ekadashi. Yeah, Saturday, Ekadashi is a certain thing we twice a month we celebrate. But it was, approximately 5,000 years ago. Krishna spoke that. And so I got a chance to chant the next chapter, which is a very, key chapter, the most confidential knowledge. And Krishna ends it with a verse that he repeats in the 18th chapter. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru mama vaishyasi yuktva vamatmana matparayana. The same word avaishyasi is used in this verse, means you'll come to me. Says, so in the 18th chapter, there's a verse after that, which is the final instruction of Krishna. And both of those verses together form like the whole final lesson. Everything culminates in those two verses. And so I put them into a poem. It says, think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. You come to me, O friend, I promise you this boon I shall bestow. Just give up all other dharmas and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjun, from anxiety be free. So this idea that we're carrying around, our karma, the law of karma, whatever we've done in previous lives or in this life, this is affecting what we experience, good and bad, in this lifetime. So, because we've had so many lives before, and that affects, it's carried forward. So we need to clear all that karma out, especially, bad karma, but even so-called good karma. Because that just gives us a better position in the material world, but the material world is by nature a place of suffering. So we don't want good karma, we don't want bad karma, we want no karma. This is called akarma or naishkarma stage. So Krishna says there, in that last verse, Sarva dhamma padatijya mame kam sharanam bhaja aham tvam sarva papaya mokshaya sami mastucha. That previous verse, most confidential knowledge, think of me, become my devotee, worship me, bow down to me, recognize me as God. You come to me, because I'm your friend. Come back to me, your friend. Give up all other so-called religion, surrender to me, I'll nullify all your karma, that's all gone. And don't be in any anxiety. You'll come back to me. These two verses form like the essence of the whole Gita. So the next chapter at the end of the, any verse that appears twice, is very important. So back to this lesson now. He says, text 5, if one remembers me at the time of death, he certainly comes to me. There's no doubt. Again, he says, without doubt. There's no doubt here. And the general principle, whatever you think of at the time of death, that will determine your next life. There's no doubt about it. Therefore, do everything you can between now and that point to dedicate your mind to me, always remember me, then you're sure to come to me. And then the question, well, what do I do? Then that question is answered by all the rest of the Gita and all the other writings we have. Prabhupada translated a book called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which means the ocean of the nectar of bhakti, and he called it the nectar of devotion. And it's a very systematic book about the method, the philosophy, and the method and the result of practicing bhakti yoga, written by Lord Chaitanya's prime disciple called Rupa Goswami back about 500 years ago. We have that book called Nectar of Devotion. What's the source of our suffering? It's sin. It's acting against the laws of God, the laws of nature. What's the source of that sin? Ignorance. Just like a little child doesn't know, wants to put his hand into the fire, Well, the parents try to, no, don't do that, But sometimes, okay, so they insist to do it, so he does it and he gets burned. And he never does it again by experience, right? So this is what we're doing, We're here, we have no idea where we came from, and we have no knowledge. And so that looks like fun. Let's do that. And then you get attracted that way, and then you get burned, and you suffer. But we don't learn the lesson because it's kind of complicated. We need to have a guide, somebody who's not illusioned. And he's trying to enlighten us from within the heart. Remember, everyone has Krishna within his heart. It's called the super soul. But we can't hear him. There's too much noise in our brain, So he comes outside as the book. He's speaking to us from the book. And as the preceptor, as the master, the guru, as Srila Prabhupada explained the book. What good is the book? You know that little writing here that no one can read? That's called Devanagari text. Everyone can see it there? That's if you want to get you can get a Bhagavad Gita in India just with the Devanagari. It's a little pamphlet. It's only 700 sentences. How long does that take? 50 pages at most, But what good is it for us? Can't read it, right? And then even if you just get there's some that are just translations, no Devanagari, even that's not going to help you much. Because it seems, I had a translation like that. It was a little paperback, a famous Penguin translation back in the 60s, 70s. I forget who translated it. I read it through. I had no idea what to do. It was some fascinating concepts there, but I didn't come to the point of, now I have to become a devotee of Krishna. It just didn't, it's complicated. You need an explanation. You have to have it properly explained to you by a practitioner, someone who's experienced. So that's what Srila Prabhupada came to give us. We have the Gita, and this little thing I wrote here, 40 years ago. The Bhagavad Gita is universally renowned as the jewel of India's spiritual wisdom. Spoken by Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to his intimate devotee Arjuna, the Gita's 700 concise verses provide a definitive guide to the science of self-realization. And the next paragraph also is about Srila Prabhupada, how he gave it as it is, without any of his own ideas mixed in there, using the Bhagavad Gita for some other purpose. And that's why it has potency, and we can pick up on it. Okay, any questions on this part of the Gita, these 3 verses, or the one we read tonight? Kind of a important verse there. Always think of me and fight, or always think of me and work. All right. If not, we'll go on. We are on text number 8. Right. Okay, 8. Abhyasa yoga yuktena chaitasa nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partana chintayan. Now just one note on Prabhupada's English. Prabhupada is native tongue is Bengali. He was born in 1896. And he went to school. It was under the British Raj, and so there was English in the schools. And then he studied in the Scottish Churches College, which is obviously an English school. And so, naturally, in those days, the he's and the hims were there being used to mean human beings, one. So it's not like sexism or anything, it's just the nature of his English. He who meditates, or she who meditates, he who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Purport. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, and mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very easy to practice, and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Purusham means enjoyer. Although living entities belong to the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. I'm going to explain what marginal energy means. Here it is clearly stated that the Supreme Enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayan, Vasudeva, etc. The devotee can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayan, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation on the supersoul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. One example often given is that of the caterpillar that thinks of becoming a butterfly and so is transformed into a butterfly in the same life. Similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain that at the end of our lives we shall have the same bodily constitution as Krishna. Well, more important instruction. Abhyasa. Abhyasa means practice. Abhyasa yoga, practicing yoga and being engaged in meditation. That was the first words of the sentence of the verse itself. So this meditation, Prabhupada is stressing the importance of chanting. And of course chanting implies hearing. The chanting and the hearing, it's a complete process. And one can chant on one's own, or as we were describing, hearing and chanting, chanting and hearing. But one way or another, one needs to hear carefully and focus the mind. Now because Krishna is all-powerful, he has invested this name with his energies. This is the wonderful verse by Lord Chaitanya. Nam namakati bahudhani sarva shaktis tatrapitani yamitak smaranena kala. That, oh my dear Lord, you have many different names. Just like Prabhupada is saying, there's different forms of God, Vasudeva. So we have two of them here, Krishna and Rama. Hare is a name for Radharani. It's actually a vocative form of Hara. The whole mantra is just calling out to Krishna. It's not. It's really a prayer, and you're just calling out the name. It's like, oh, please engage me in your service. Please pick me up. Engage me. It's a personal call, is what it is. So, because Krishna is all powerful, he can do what he wants, and he has invested that name with his energies. That means that just by taking advantage of that sound vibration, you can associate with Krishna, and you can be empowered. The main thing that happens is you get attracted. You get attracted. Suddenly you're interested in reading Bhagavad Gita more than you would be before, because you've been chanting Hare Krishna. I remember when I first heard about Krishna, I was a flute player. I say was because I haven't played much in many years. But from childhood, my father trained me in playing the little recorder flute. There's a little thing. And then when I played the clarinet, and eventually I played the regular flute, and then I got into Indian flute, and I was playing on the street in Tompkins Square Park, a few years after Prabhupada. But then when I learned that Krishna, and I saw as a flute player, that intrigued me. Wow, there's a God, because I was, I thought there's many gods, Shiva and God, Kali and all these things. One of them plays the flute. Well, I want to learn more about him, So, another flute player sitting here. Yeah. So the thing is, somehow or other, you have to get interested, turn the mind toward Krishna. But the word Krishna itself is it's related to the word karshati, which means to drag or attract. So Krishna means all attractive. And how is he all attractive? By everything that attracts us to someone else. Is it the beauty, the sound, the fragrance, the power, the fame, the fact that he's a very skillful dresser, his compassion, everything that will attract us to a person, Krishna has in an unlimited degree. So it's all there in the name. This is inconceivable. But by chanting that name, you get attracted. And Krishna is attracted to you. It's said that the flute, that flute sound of Krishna, that attracts the gopis, practically involuntarily, they have to leave, very attractive sound. It appears in this material world in the form of the Hare Krishna mantra. That is the esoteric point. It's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That means we can't hear the flute right now, but we can hear Hare Krishna. And if you hear it carefully, especially if chanted by devotees, that'll attract you to Krishna. Let me check out the temple, And there's a certain, there's a peace here. You come here, it's not it's not like a movie theater. It's not someone trying to exploit you, It's just a place where there's the divine presence, because of all the chanting and the serving, and we're trying to keep it divine. So Krishna is inviting us. He wants us to become attracted. It's his blessing. It appears in a beautiful form. Inspires the devotees to dress him nicely, maintain. And to cook for him very nice prasadam. We can taste it, contact him that way. All the senses can be engaged in Krishna. The seeing, and of course hearing first, and seeing and tasting, smelling the incense. This is how we become purified. So that's abhyas, abhyasa yoga yuktena. And there's a systematic process of training. It involves everything, the whole lifestyle. The dressing and all kinds of things. So that's what Prabhupada brought amazingly, and it spread all over the world. By force, one to think. So this idea that you become what you think of, but what your main thought is, that's not understood in the West, but that's really how you develop. If you, on the material side, if you really want to become an actor or an actress, and you think about it, you idealize it, you find out how to do it, and you meditate on it, and you work toward it, and then you can take that you can achieve that. So the absorption of the mind is the key here. And using the intelligence to direct the mind and the senses to stay in contact with Krishna. We used to hear this word a lot more, dovetailing. You remember that? Dovetail. Okay, you're a musician, and learn how to sing bhajans for Krishna. Like that. You like to cook? We have the cooking. There's so many things you can do. Whatever work you do, you can do for Krishna. So that's how you can stay in contact and remember Krishna. And then you're ready at any time. If you're called, you're thinking of Krishna. Leave this body forever. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes. One of the things is that you may notice, although it doesn't come out so much here, but that these verses, they're all a song. It's the Gita, means a song. They all have a nice beat to them. Next verse is going to be a little longer. Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram. So that's a big part of bhakti, is songs. And so I did my little attempt at writing some poetry, and I'll give you a sample, and then we'll have the kirtan. And that is about the holy name. There's this nice little verse in Sanskrit. Anghak sanghadatakilang sakadudihade pasakalalokasya tadanidivatamal jaladhim jayachita ganmangalang hare nama. Now you have to go back 500 years. There's no electric lighting. When the moon is invisible, withered to nil, right? New moon. When the moon is invisible, withered to nil, and the sun is long gone from the sky, then an ocean of darkness envelops this world, and the timorous fear they might die. But that thick pall of gloom is at once swept away when the first signs of sunrise appear, and the dawning of day gives assurance to all that in truth there is nothing to fear. In a similar way, when illusion holds sway and the soul has forgotten his Lord, then the darkness of ignorance covers his heart. Sin and suffering are his reward. But as soon as he chants Krishna's name even once, in a manner that doesn't offend, then his ignorance flees like the darkness at dawn, and his sin and his suffering end. So there's nothing to fear, for the sun of the name has appeared with his powers divine. In your heart may that sun, benedictive for all, become fixed and eternally shine. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So now in 5 minutes we'll have this nice kirtan. Have you been here before? You see the deities? Oh no, this is a big surprise then. I'm going to see if I can open those gates so we don't have to look through the gates.